All righty. Welcome. I am Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior. I'm an attorney and legal coach based here in Seattle, Washington, supporting information entrepreneurs throughout the US and the world. Welcome to another episode of Guts, Grit, and Great Business. I am super excited to welcome Julie Lilliston today. Welcome, Julie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm so excited that we are meeting today. I'm really looking forward to this conversation with you, Heather.
Well, I have been as well. I know when we first connected, it was an obvious yes, and I thought, but I also have quite a pipeline, and so I think it's been quite a time since you and I first chatted. But I'm super excited that you're here, and I'm really excited for people to get to know you and a bit more about your topic of expertise. I feel like for a lot of businesses, they don't get support in this area, and it's a
Mhm.
really important one. So, for those of you that don't know Julie Lilliston is founder and president of Julie Lilliston Communications, an award-winning, nationally certified, woman-owned public relations firm in Nashville that helps businesses enhance their reputation, build their brand, and grow market share. She cultivated her corporate communications expertise at Weber Shandwick in Chicago. Her work on the Go Direct campaign for the U.S. Treasury and Federal Reserve Banks earned a PRSA Silver Anvil and PR Week award. Julie Lilliston Communications ranks as a top 15 public relations agencies in Nashville by UpCity. She is a member of PRSA's Counselors Academy and served on the board of the National Association of Women Business Owners. Nashville chapter as past president. Julie is a recipient of the Nashville Business Journal's Women of Influence Awards and an Athena Award nominee. She serves on the Women's Enterprise Forum as second vice chair of the marketing team with WBENC. Julie is an alumni of the Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses program. She serves on the board of directors of Citizens Savings Bank and Trust Company, the nation's oldest continuously operating African-American owned bank. She received the Enterprising Woman of the Year Champions Award in 2022. Julie has a Bachelor's of Arts degree in English from the College of Worcester in Ohio. We were just talking about our Ohio connections. That's quite a resume, Julie. Welcome.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here, and hello to everyone. I'm excited to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'd love to hear a little bit about how PR became the thing for you. Where did your interest in PR begin?
It's a great question, and it's funny because I think I have to think back to my dad who said, "Well, because I like to talk a lot, I like to write a lot," and he's like, "Something in communications would work for you," and he totally called it when I was like 8 years old. Um, and would get in trouble for talking in class a lot because I thought I had a lot to say. So it just kind of naturally came that way. It came through
Mm.
writing for me, in being an English major in school and wanting to tell stories.
Mm.
And that really is, for me, what PR is all about. It's about helping businesses tell their story, whether it's about the owner, founder, entrepreneur, or whether it's about their products or services or what they're bringing
Mm.
to market, and getting that out there in the community. And so it's very exciting and rewarding work to be able to, connect all those dots for people and really get them excited about a business and about an industry.
Mm.
I do a lot in business to business communications. It's kind of where I've
Mhm.
specialized over the years. So it's not really the sexy side of PR when you think of all the, products and services and the glitz and glamour that celebrity can bring. That's not usually where I'm focusing on for my clients. And so for me, that's kind of the challenge and the art of it, being able to tell a story that is exciting, in an industry that, maybe a little inaccessible to some people
Mm.
and may not be as everyday and commonplace. So
Mm.
it's fun because you have to get up to speed on a lot of different industries and verticals in a short amount of time and know
Mm.
just enough to be able to work with editors and publications and producers and things like that to be able to promote your client and their services and products and get them the coverage that they need to help grow their business. That's ultimately what it's about.
Mm,
So I just get really passionate working with other small business owners and entrepreneurs and the things that they've been able to accomplish and do and how they've been able to grow their businesses and contribute in a way that is so unique and beneficial. And for me, it's just about finding the meaningful work.
mm-hmm.
The organizations, I do a lot with nonprofits as well, so that are serving the community. I just find that extremely rewarding to be able to help them elevate and tell their story and the stories of the beneficiaries of what they're doing in the community. That to me, it just has a lot of weight. And so to be able to contribute in that way through PR, which, can get a bad rap of either, hacks and flacks or it's fluff. I don't work in that world. Everything I do is just has a lot of meaning behind it. Otherwise, quite honestly, I can't really get into it and get behind it. Like I have to
Mm,
really be excited and lit up about a client and about who I'm working with for it to really work.
yeah.
So,
Well, you hear that, even in business, people are doing business with people. I'm curious on
mhm.
the storytelling side, are the stories personal? Like most of the time, are you really telling people stories, or are there ways that you are truly telling stories that are just about the business? I'm curious about the
Yeah.
overlap between the people stories and the business stories.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it really depends on, the evolution of the company. So if there's
Mhm.
an interesting origin story where someone got into a field that they had no experience in and really started excelling and taking off and growing, that's interesting
Mhm.
to media. So being able to figure out kind of what that backstory is and how did they end up in an industry that they had, like tech, for instance, where they had no background or experience, but they had an idea and they were able to see
Mhm.
it through. Like people love to champion the underdog and love to get behind someone who had a lot of adversity in terms of their didn't have a traditional path or maybe the
Mhm.
backing, but were able to succeed. So that to me is very personal, even though it's tied to business success.
Mhm.
And, some owners, founder, small business owners may be more comfortable with that approach than others. And sometimes it is really focused on more the business story and the
Mhm.
growth and expansion and focused more on their revenues and client growth. And so, there's a variety of different tactics and things you can do to tell those stories working with their customers or their
Mhm.
clients, for instance, and having them talk about what their experience has been. That's a
Mm.
great way to show, not tell, which you always learn
Mhm.
in English and in writing classes, to tell, the story on behalf
Yeah.
of a company. So having
Yeah.
those partners and clients that can tell their story on your behalf is worth gold in the PR world because it's, earned media, we call it,
Mhm.
and it's you're definitely working very hard to earn any of that coverage. But I think that, you just really look at all those different paths and ways that we can tell a story for a business through case studies and those
Mhm.
client stories and testimonials. They're really important because they give that credibility and they're authentic. This
Mhm.
isn't a paid advertising, spokesperson type of role. They're giving their real lived experience an account, and that is just it's worth a lot in the
Mhm.
PR world and in the media world. They want to talk to people who've had experiences, good, bad, otherwise, challenges. What was it really like as well. So
Mhm.
I try to
Abs
package all that up and coordinate all of that on behalf of a client.
I love that. Are there some key buckets or areas that you look into to find those stories? Like you just
Hmm.
mentioned, telling the client stories. Are there other areas like when you're sitting down and beginning to work with a client, are you looking in some of the same places to figure
Hmm.
out what the stories are?
Absolutely. So, like, we do a discovery session with a client. That's kind of the first thing we do is really go through and understand their business model. They can be kind of complicated if you're in healthcare or tech or other industries. So, really understanding that in a way that you start to kind of uncover, some of those stories. We call it story mining. And really figuring out what are some of the things that really stand out in terms of milestones that they've reached or achievements. And as I mentioned, some challenges and shifts and pivots they had to make. And it all comes through that session, a big part of it. And then diving in, another thing that I do is a messaging and positioning session with the client. So after we get some of the discovery and the background and all of their materials that we can get our hands on and kind of figure out like, okay, how are we going to position them in the market? Who are some of their
Mm,
competitors? What the industry that they're in? Where are they headed?
mhm,
What is that growth story? Then we start figuring out their overall positioning
mm,
that we'll be putting forth with messaging, which is essentially, diving into some of the key messages about their business. And then, what's really important are those proof points. So, okay, you're in this industry and you're leading. How can we prove that you're leading in this industry or what your market share is? And again, it gets to kind of the comfort level of the client, what they're willing to talk about, especially if they're privately owned and run and managed, and what are they not comfortable talking about. So we have to have a compelling enough story for the media to be
mhm.
interested and to want to write about it. It can't be so evergreen that they're never going to get off the dime and write. So that's my job, is to figure out what those news hooks are. What are some of the
Mm,
things that the media is writing about? What are some of the trends and insights that the client can bring to a particular issue? And so that's where I really focus on for a lot of clients, is
mm,
being able to uncover that. So there's just a lot of ways to work it.
uh,
But yeah, really getting in and understanding a client and their business and how they make money and who their target is in terms of a client customer for them, because that's where I want them to be in front of. That's where they
mhm,
need to be from a media standpoint, a speaking standpoint, or awards that we might want to go after. Those are really the three components of what we call executive visibility and thought leadership.
mm. Well, you mentioned I put notes down. You mentioned messaging and positioning, and I'm
Hmm.
curious how many businesses you begin working with where you realize they don't even understand their own messaging or positioning. Are you finding that you're really helping clients hone that, or are you showing
Hmm.
up and they often already have that figured out?
It really depends. And I think a
Mm,
lot of it depends on where they are in their business. So if they're, maybe 3 to 5 years in, they've had some big shifts and jumps, things can be changing dramatically. They may not have changed their messaging, or maybe they're changing their messaging a lot. I run into that where it's, well, we're not doing that anymore. We're focusing on this. Oh, we've changed that. That's the old logo.
mhm,
That tagline doesn't work anymore. So they're trying to figure out where they're going and where they're headed and what that is. So it can be beneficial to come in at that time and help them crystallize that. Once we take a really good look and do a media audit, take a look at the landscape, kind of see who's out there, and start honing that down. I think the biggest challenge with a lot of clients is that they want to be everywhere all at once. So oh, who's our client, our target? It's everybody. No, it's not. Like, you really need to figure out. And so that's what I do, is to kind of keep drilling down, because, time and resources are finite. So
mhm,
we can only focus on so many different types of targets and so many messages and audiences. We can't be everywhere. So let's figure out and prioritize. And I help them do that and
mhm,
help them walk through that process of, where do we really need to be focusing? Where are our potential buyers? What motivates them? How do they make their decisions? What resources do they go to in terms of print, online,
mm,
broadcast? Where are they getting their information? Because that's where we need to be showing up. So to me, everything has to really ladder up to their overarching business objectives. to be able to build a strategy and a plan and then execute that for it to be really effective.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you mentioned that there, and I want to make sure that we get back to this, the executive visibility and thought leadership piece. And I think you said there are three parts to that.
Hmm.
I know you covered them. Quickly give us the bullet points of those three
Yeah.
parts.
Yep. So for executive visibility, and where we really focus is on media relations,
Mm-hmm.
which can be, that's one bucket that could be all different types of tactics, from interviews, providing expert commentary, Q&As, contributed
Mm-hmm.
articles, so those bylines, things that are a little more controlled. But also can be, getting that press release pipeline going and letting the media know, what's going on with your company, product launches, new services, the growth you've had, strategic partners that you're bringing in, or when you're expanding and you're growing your team. So those announcements about the new team members coming in. And then it also, can involve, as I mentioned, like the interviews. So that's where,
Mm-hmm.
as you start building up, and I recommend that people, if you have not done or approached any kind of PR, any earned media at all, just really start in your own backyard. Like literally just own your own local media and community. And everybody has some kind of business journal or business publication. Start there, start getting those Q&As going, having the reporters who cover your industry get to know you, you get to know them. And once you start building that and then going regionally and then within your industry and the trades, and then you can build up nationally as you've gotten your track record and you're really growing a lot and you have a bigger story to share. um, you'd be surprised like how you get those relationships formed that then when they're working on something, they contact you for input
Mm-hmm.
or to provide a comment or quote. So, it really pays off to start there and just let it grow. The second piece is really around speaking engagements. So it's kind of
Mm-hmm.
taking where the same type of areas that you're focusing on and talking about in the media, and I work with clients to figure out what are those 3 to 5 things that you really want to be known for. And that's what we're going to focus on in the media. That's what we're going to focus on for speaking engagements. And I do a lot in putting together proposals and call for papers for clients that are really focused on their industry, national conferences, regional conferences, getting them out there speaking on some of the trends and insights in the industry that they're seeing. And that all leads to, the whole thought leadership piece. And a lot of times it's for all different kinds of associations and professional organizations that are looking for experts in a certain field. And those are the types of opportunities that I seek and pitch for my clients. And then the third piece is really around awards. So you'd be surprised how much credibility you can get from some awards. And, you may feel like, okay, well, I feel weird submitting myself and doing
Mm-hmm.
this, or this feels, self-gratuitous or self-promotional. You have to kind of get over that. Basically, it's like you've done the work, your team has done the work. It really helps build morale within an organization and a team for, getting some of the recognition and awards in the business community, in your industry, in some of the national organizations you may be part of. I mean, you've done the work, you should, get the credit for it. So I've just you just have to go for it. But it does a lot of goodwill in terms of an organization and the team. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I always have to tell people kind of it's not necessarily about you and putting your face out there everywhere, but it's about you're doing this on behalf of the company.
Mm.
Uh,
Well,
so,
and you raised a really important point earlier about getting clients to help tell that story. And I think for
mhm,
anybody that is sitting there going like, oh, this feels hard to go up for an award, or, which it can be. I think most
mhm,
humans are averse to, you know, often being in the spotlight, or,
mhm,
and even people leading teams. But hearing your clients reflect back to you the importance of
mhm,
your work, the impact of what you're doing, right? I think that can be a really affirming experience, and one that,
mhm.
especially in the small business world, a lot of small businesses don't do enough of.
Oh yeah. I mean, you definitely like ask for the review, the Google
Mhm.
review or the testimonials, ask for it, and just build it into part of your process when you're
Mm,
working with a client and they're really happy with your work. They love to do it. I mean, for the most part,
mm,
it's just a matter of time and fitting it into their schedule. For nominations for awards, you can self-nominate, or if you're uncomfortable with that, you can ask someone to
mhm,
nominate you, like a client. And usually the initial nominations of some of these awards aren't too cumbersome. It depends on the process, and sometimes they'll send out a detailed questionnaire that does take more time to fill out and everything, and that goes to the individual who's nominated. So there's a process for a lot
mhm,
of these. Sometimes there's review committees, interviews could be a part of it. But I think it's a really good learning experience. I encourage any small business owner, entrepreneur to go for it and do it, because I think that just again being nominated is an honor, and as
mhm.
you go up into more national level awards, how much more competitive they are. But it does bring a lot of credibility and recognition for your business
Mhm,
to do it.
mhm. No, it's great feedback. And even the piece on, because I heard you say build the asking for the testimonials and the reviews into your process. I read
Mm-hmm.
recently, because this is something I'm working on in my own business, that like on average for businesses that do it well, it takes anywhere from like 5 to 7 follow-ups, even with clients that adore you, right?
Right. It does.
Just because of the scheduling
Mm-hmm.
and our days get so full, and if they haven't calendared it, or they, didn't stop right then and do it, but that it's successful, it will result in successful feedback. And
Mm-hmm.
people
Oh
are
yeah.
not bothered by that if you're somebody, I think, who's really committed to your work and your business, or your
Mm-hmm.
business is really delivering an outstanding product, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
anyways, just an important point to like the gold is in the follow-up, right?
Oh, it is. That is definitely true
Mhm.
in in media relations in general. If entrepreneurs are going to embark on some of that on their own, like rejection is just part of the game. And it's not even necessarily rejection, it's just no response.
Right, it's just a non-response. Yes.
And I every time I'm like, really? This is a great idea. This is a great pitch. This is
Mhm.
everything. I'm just, packaging this all up for you beautifully. And it's not even that they, don't have a feeling about it one way or the other. It's the time.
Yeah.
And particularly with media, it's all around that urgency and relevancy. So if you
Mhm.
don't have those two things, those two components of why do I need to write about this? What does this matter to the community that we write for or reporting to? And why now? If you
Yeah.
really have to hit those things and hit them hard to get them to move and do it, because newsrooms are so stretched, they have shrunk tremendously. So the follow-up, being diligent and following up a couple times and then like moving on to other targets and other um, reporters at a particular outlet. It's
Mhm.
great to be able to get, I'm going to pass on this, but keep me informed of what else they're doing. So you get some kind of feedback, but a lot of times there's just, no
Just
feedback.
non-response. Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
and
you can't, yeah, can't take it personally. You got to just move on and,
no, you can't.
learn from it. And
Right. I always appreciate those lists that get published around like people who've really achieved significant success.
mm-hmm.
Like I'm thinking of the Harry Potter series, right? How many
Oh,
times she got
oh
rejected
my
in
gosh.
pitching
Yeah.
her, right? Her drafts. And
Yeah.
I just think, you know, it's important for us to see those kinds of stats and that information, of
Mm-hmm.
just realizing it's just part of the process. It's just part of
Mm-hmm.
what we have to go through in the context
Mm-hmm.
of really any work that we're putting out to the world. And so, yeah, I love it. Like, just don't take it personally, keep at it. It's so good. I think earlier you said, get over yourself. And it's like, yes, how many times in business is that really the solution? Just get
Oh
over
man.
yourself.
Getting over yourself and getting out of your own way, because you could talk yourself out of anything that you want to do. You really can. And it's you just have to take that step and do it. And then you're like, oh man, that why I sent that off. I probably shouldn't. Why did I send this? And then what if they respond and they actually want an interview? What am I going to say?
Mm,
But it's all a
absolutely.
learning, and you just have to have the confidence and belief in, what you're doing and in your business and what
Yeah.
you have to offer. I think that the other big lesson, I think, with executive visibility and thought leadership is that PR is not selling. It's like the anti-selling.
Mm,
It's having others talk on your behalf. It's educational. And that's what you're doing. You're sharing your expertise and insights that people can't get anywhere else. And that is
mm,
what is selling then your business on your behalf, because you're talking about, you're sharing those, again, those insights and the trends and where things are headed. And that's what, the media really respond to and want to write about and consider you for being a potential source for additional
mm,
commentary, because you provide that to them and you provide it to them in a way that's timely. When
mm.
they send, hey, we'd like your comment on this. And if it's something about, you have to respond like they're on deadline.
Right,
You can't just
right.
let that go and be, oh, I missed that opportunity, So
Mm,
it's prioritizing it. And but definitely I think when you get the opportunity and you're sharing your expertise, that it's not about like, your pricing and all of the
mhm,
features and benefits and things of these products that you have. It's what is the end result? How does this
mm,
really help the community? How does it solve a problem? Talk about what the problem is. Here's what the solution is.
mm.
And people get it, and they will look you up, they will connect with you online, they will reach out. It will drive the traffic, to your website or to find out more information. um, so
Well,
I think that's a big distinction that people have to understand.
no, I think that is important, really important, because I think for a lot of people in business, the selling part and selling yourself, selling your business can feel uncomfortable. But any
Hmm.
of us can talk about something that we love. And so often, I think businesses are born of a unique problem, right, attached to a unique solution, which is why
Hmm.
their business is successful. So I think talking about that feels way easier than
Yes.
anything that looks or feels like selling, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And there are some, founders, CEOs I work with that are just natural salespeople. They're just immediately going
Mhm.
to go right to we're the best. We're the it's so I have to like kind of coach them in focusing on, what it is we're here to talk about, and some of those
Yeah,
stories and anecdotes and the things that they've experienced, in their business that they can talk about, that are issues and the
yeah.
problems that they're solving for clients and their customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I heard you say multiple times that, one of the things that it takes to get media interested in your business, in your products or services, is understanding the urgency and relevancy
Yeah.
piece. How do you help people find that? How do you help businesses find that, even if they're feeling kind of at a loss for what about their business is urgent and relevant, right? Because they just
Hmm.
don't see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly it. A lot of times, they're focused on things looking, how far ahead down the road and where they're going. And so they don't see like the little gems along the way, and they may
Mhm.
not recognize and know like that's really something that we can use as a story. So that's kind of part of my job, is like helping them figure that out. Like, this is where we need
Mhm.
to focus. This is interesting. And could you do, an introduction to your client? And then I get on the phone with the client and start, quick call, asking them the
Mhm.
questions that I need. Would they be willing to talk to media? Would they be willing to share, their insight and experience and that kind of thing, and get them on board with participating in it? Because the client may feel like, is that really anything? How do I know?
Mhm.
The other big piece in PR is it's really a ton of reading and research and reading and
Mhm.
understanding about the industry and what media are writing about. And so, in coming up with pitch ideas and creating like this proactive pitch bank for clients, that's what we do, is really dig in and figure
Mhm.
out what are the trends, what are the things that we can really pull from, that we can ask the client about, to kind of drag those stories out of them or their clients, so we can develop that and get that out there. It's hard to see for yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's that kind of that lack of objectivity that you may not have or may not see it. But certainly, once business owners have been in the industry long enough, they know who the main players are. They know where there may be some gaps there, where they can step in and fulfill a need. They know where they're headed. And so it's just being, comfortable talking about that publicly, in the media. But, it starts to perpetuate once you start building momentum in the PR world, and PR is really the long game. It's definitely, it takes a good 6 months or more to start building up that traction. And again, starting in your backyard, getting out regional, industry wise, then national. It takes time to build that up. But what happens is once you start getting this kind of coverage and getting the ball rolling and promoting that through your social media and on your website and sharing that, then you start getting the reactive opportunities where then reporters and publications and opportunities start coming your way, that you're not out there pushing, it's coming to you. So you definitely see that happen with clients, and it's a wonderful thing when it does, because that everything you've done to build up that foundation has now gone kind of to, there's always another level. And so you'll get to that next level and then just keep going from there. So it takes that commitment to be able to keep going and putting the resources there. But, ultimately you should, the phone should be ringing in terms of, getting your sales should be growing. It all needs to tie into everything you're doing from your business strategy standpoint.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, PR itself is just, I think, a very important form of marketing, right? It's what it is. And for companies that do it well, even small businesses. And I love your advice around start in your backyard, because I think a lot of people, especially small business owners, are at a loss of like, how do you get this ball rolling? How do you get started, right? Now, I imagine when you are pitching your client stories to any media outlet, like there's a special way that gets done, meaning that you have to condense down a lot of information into, something that from your perspective sells your client, right? How can you give us some gems that you've learned over the years in that process? Because I imagine that's another piece that business owners don't do well themselves.
Yes, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked it, because I think the thing that I have learned over the years is, once you get to know the media that cover this industry and who they are and what they write about, and again, the relevance and urgency, and you're thinking and looking in that lens of like, why should they write about this and why now? Why should they cover it? And you feel like you've got that. It has to be really short and concise, like a few sentences, a paragraph, put the links into the website, or to a microsite or wherever the information is that they can learn a little more, offer up, an interview, and here's who the spokesperson is. And like, that's it. Like, it really has to be so extremely short. So I think a lot of times clients may be sending out, just volumes of, like a pitch that goes on and on for, way too much information. Like, you've got to hook them first and get them interested. And then we can spend the time and educating them about, why this is important, and setting them up with the other interviews that they can do and who else they can talk to and the other resources that you have. But if you overwhelm them from out of the gate, you're just going to get the no response, or I don't have time to take this on. Like, this seems like overwhelming, or a huge amount of education that they have to do just to get up to speed on what it is that you do. Like,
well,
and
and we don't know where this fits, right? You receive something like this and it's like, where does this fit if it is not so short and concise and to the point?
Yeah. So it really comes down to being very familiar and really understanding the particular outlet and the actual reporter, editor, whoever it is that you're reaching out to and pitching, and knowing that this is something that is exactly up their alley. And so you have to really fine tune in the more highly targeted list you have. I think the other thing that people do is then send something out and just kind of blanket it. And I've sent out this pitch to, 1,000. Volume does not work here. I very much believe in kind of hand picking and, figuring out what's going to work with this particular outlet or reporter and what they're writing about. And then if you get the no, then moving on to another outlet, another reporter, and I've had cases too where, they may be like, well, this isn't right for me, but so-and-so might be interested in covering this and referring you on to someone else. Like follow up with that, and mention, hey, and again, it just comes down to their priorities, what's already on their plate, what's breaking news. If you have something that's really a hot news item, then you want to offer like an exclusive on, do that. Like there's a merger or an acquisition or strategic partnership or something that's really high news value, go to the biggest outlet that you can that has covered you and is familiar with you and offer it to them. And if, once you get their agreement on the exclusive and, work with them then to tell the story. And then you can, once that appears, you can send it out to everybody else to cover it, but honor that agreement. So, there are different ways that you can work it and different approaches. But I think that, sending either too much or to too many is kind of one of the things that I see a lot.
Oh, I imagine like let's just throw spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks with this one pitch. Yeah. What would you say? I mean, I want to hear about a couple things. Some of what you would consider either favorite or even unusual wins, but also just generally, what is it that you love most about your work?
Oh, wow. Let's see, favorite or unusual wins. That's a good question because I feel like every, win that I've had has been my favorite, like for a while. I think that, let's see, I'll have to think about that a little bit.
No worries.
I'm going to answer the second question first.
Yeah,
about
totally.
Which is around, kind of restate that again, the second question.
Yeah, what do you love?
Why I do what I do.
What do you love most about your work? Like, what do you find when you're in those moments of like, oh my gosh, this is why I do this, right? What do those moments look like?
I think, the moments where it's like, this is why I do this is being able to take a client who may not have had, and I've worked with a lot of, small businesses who may not have ever sent out a press release or have had no exposure in the media and, very minimal, have not done that at all. And being able to get them really comfortable and in a rhythm with doing interviews and getting coverage and seeing the impact that has on their business. I mean, that to me, plus it, builds their confidence and the trust that we have to have, as a client and consultant relationship, that they're trusting in the strategy and the approach that we're taking and feel good about that. And we start to get the momentum going and we start to get the hits, the multiple hits, that I like to get for a client. I feel like that is really rewarding to me because we've been able to take them from, no exposure or not much exposure. And the thing of it is, a lot of these companies that I'm working with, they have done some really tremendous things. They just haven't really been out there talking about it. And, a lot of companies maybe like to be, quiet or in stealth mode, but at some point, if you're going to grow, you have to get out of that. So,
right. Nobody really wants to be long-term the best kept secret in their industry.
Exactly. And I hear that a lot, like nobody knows about us. Nobody hears about us. We want to grow. So being able to help them do that is really fulfilling and exciting. And I love collaboration. So to me, PR is really collaborative at all levels, me with the client and then me with the media and then getting the client and the media to get, because with media relations in particular, a lot of it is out of your control. So you really have to trust that and believe in yourself and what you're doing and how you're presenting your company and what you're talking about, that you're getting it across to media. And that's hard to do. I mean, your business more than anyone, but it's really hard to do in a concise way that someone who's completely unfamiliar with the technology or whatever it is, and you have to educate them in a way that they get it and they're excited about it and can write about it. So it could be complicated. So it's, that comfort level, I think, where clients are like, well, are we going to be able to see this before it comes out or before it airs? It's like, that's advertising. That's not PR. and I have to, educate clients because they just haven't had the experience of it. And it's, they're just not familiar. And so that, lack of control can really be an issue. And so again, the trust has to come in that we've done everything we
Mm.
can. They may talk to competitors if it's an industry roundup type article, and that's fine. You're a part of that. You're included in
Mhm.
that. So you have to be confident in what you're putting out there that you've got it
Oh.
covered. But the other thing, I think, like one of the biggest wins, I've worked with some great nonprofits over the years. And one that I was really excited about this year that came through was a cover story for a client, WeBank South, which is part of the WeBank, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. But this client is WeBank South, so they're headquartered in New Orleans, and they're celebrating the 30th anniversary and this year. So we've been working with different publications and helping to tell that story, and working with Biz New Orleans over a number of years for different things that we've done. So to be able to get that story in collaboration with my client, and working on that relationship over the years was a really big win. Great win for
Mm.
the organization, great win for the national organization as well, because our national conference will be in New Orleans next year. So it's kind of helping to set that up in a way. But that was a really great win because they've done tremendous work helping to certify women-owned businesses all across. There's our 5-state region that they run and manage, and that network is highly valuable for women business owners. So
Well, and
that
I
was a
know,
great
yeah,
win.
yeah, that sounds like a great win. And I know before we went live, you and I were talking about your experience in a couple of different networks
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
utilizing those as not only a way to build your own business, but to support other women-owned businesses. Do you want to share a little bit about your own
Yeah.
journey and your own business building path?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, it kind of came organically when I started my business as a result of a layoff, actually, and wasn't sure what I
Mm.
wanted to do. And a friend had called me to find out about doing some consulting, and I'm like, sure. And once I did that, and I realized I could work with business owners, I can do this on my own. This is awesome, and taking all those best practices I learned at the global agencies and
Mm.
bringing them to smaller businesses. That for me was just like, if I could figure out how to keep this going and grow this is where it's at for me. So, here I am, I'm celebrating 10 years this year. And
Congrats.
thank you. Thank you. And so getting as a part of that growth was getting tapped into some organizations. One is the National Association of Women Business Owners, NABO.
Mhm.
Been a part of that pretty much since I started my business. And it's a great network because my agency, we're a remote agency. So I work with other consultants and other 1099s. A lot of them are women business owners. They're running their own companies that have various expertise that I could tap, and vice versa.
Mm.
They bring me in on a PR piece if they're doing social media or content marketing or some other aspect that I don't specialize
Mm.
in. So that for me was a great network of colleagues, creative partners, collaborators, but then also led to business. And the other network, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, WeBank, is the #1 certifier of women-owned businesses across the country, that the Fortune 500 are a part of
Mm.
and support, and are corporate members. So when they're looking to source, and this is through their procurement or the supplier diversity, diverse owned businesses, they work with the WeBank network to do that. And I think there are about 20,000 WBEs, women business enterprises,
Mm.
that are certified through the WeBank network. So for me, being a part of that, in our region and then nationally, and being part of the organization, and I serve on the forum for National WeBank, which is about, I think, around 250 or 300 women. It's a
Mm.
great network. We help do educational programs for all of the WBEs. And to be a part of that from a learning and leadership standpoint has been really important, just to
Mm.
give back and to help support other women-owned businesses, and also to grow my business because they're really working with the other women business owners who don't have the internal PR, marketing, communication support, are looking for resources who provide that. So it's been a great network for me. So I
Mm,
just recommend anyone looking for those national networks to figure out kind of where they are
mm,
and how you can grow and expand your business that way.
yeah. Oh, I think it's such a fabulous reminder about the power of, not only collaboration, which I know you've mentioned multiple times, but being in networks where you have those opportunities and you're constantly relationship building. And I think it's
Mm-hmm.
really super important for women as well. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I track statistics quite often related to business and watching what happened during the pandemic to women-owned
Yeah,
businesses, to women in the
absolutely.
work field, the workforce. And then what happened towards the end of that and post-pandemic with all of these women
Mm-hmm.
starting new businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not returning
Mm-hmm.
to the traditional workforce, but
Yes.
also, bumping into so many hurdles
Mm-hmm.
that are really specific to women-owned and minority-owned businesses.
Yeah.
And so I think it's super important for us to be in circles that support those businesses.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of resources and then thinking, what are some of the barriers for growth of
Mhm.
women-owned businesses? It's access to capital, it's,
Mhm.
having the network and the funding resources and the education and getting the opportunity. I can't tell you how many introductions I've had, how many referrals I've
Mhm.
had. And vice versa. I love to do that for others too that I've hired
Yeah.
women owned and partner with,
Mhm.
refer, and it's just
Mhm.
a powerful network. So I definitely, yeah, being able to tap into those, it's so beneficial because you never know, what's going to happen. But what I find such comfort in you never know, like, yeah, the next pandemic or whatever's happening.
Mhm.
I feel like I have every resource that I need pretty much at my fingertips, no matter what it is. If
Yeah.
it's, accountants, if it's legal support, if it's any type of service that I need or expertise that I need or partner, I'm going to be able to find it through those networks.
That's amazing. I mean, that is what I call a resource rich business, right? Because so
Mm-hmm.
often it really
Mm-hmm.
is about who we know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's such a good reminder. I will put links to both WeBank and Nabo in your
Great.
show notes. So for folks listening that are like, especially women that are like, "Ooh, I need to belong to those networks or look for some similar networks,"
Mm-hmm.
we can direct them that way. I know we're bumping up here against the top of the hour for our schedule. I am curious, do you show up online? Where do you show up online, and where do you like for people to connect with you?
Great. Well, thank you. Yes,
Mhm,
so definitely you can connect to me through my website,
mhm,
julielilliston.com. That's a great way. I've got a form on there to fill out. And the other way is through like Instagram at Julie
mhm.
Lilliston, or LinkedIn is a great
Okay,
place too. I think those are all great resources.
awesome.
Hmm.
So, yep, folks, pop over to the show notes page. You can find those always at legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Find Julie Lilliston's episode, and we will share links to her website, to her two socials. I was going to say, you better be on LinkedIn. I know that a lot of my people are on LinkedIn, so I know yours are as well. And then also to WeBank and Nabo, and then,
Hmm.
anything else you'd like us to share in the meantime. I know you had offered when we were talking earlier, a special gift or opportunity to
Yeah.
anybody who's listening. Do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, great. Yes, I'd love to offer anyone who's interesting a 30-minute complimentary consultation to discuss your biggest PR challenge. Be happy to get
Mm,
online with you and talk that through and brainstorm some strategies and ideas. Just go to my website and fill out that contact form and mention the show,
mm.
and we can get that set up.
That's amazing. Super, super generous. So if you're listening, pop over. Again, the links will be in the show notes, legalwebsitewarrior.com/podcast. Look for Julie's episode. And you can connect with Julie and have her give you support on one of your biggest PR questions or issues, which I think is a huge opportunity to any small business owner listening. Julie, it's been so fun to hear about your world and your work and have you, I can tell how much you care about it, the way that you carefully walked us through the various elements of, each of the things that you cover with your clients. And I can see why you love it. You talk about all this relationship building and collaboration and the amount of trust that people have to have. And it just sounds like a really fun side to your work. So thank you so much for being here and sharing this with us. What final action step, takeaway would you like to leave with our listeners today?
Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been an absolute blast. I've loved it. And hope that I've had, some words of wisdom or some, thought starters for clients. But I think like for your audience, the number one thing I would say for people is just to go for it, basically. Don't be inhibited by, I'm not big enough or I haven't really accomplished anything. You have, and you are, and
And
you
just
just
get
need
over yourself.
get over yourself and get out of your own way. I guess that's really what it is. Because you just need to take those first few steps in reaching out to some media to tell your story. So
Mhm. Well, it reminds me, there's a quote somewhere, and I'm sure I'll get it wrong, but I love it. I used to hang it in my office by my desk. It was like, um, starting is half the battle, right? Just get started.
mhm,
And I think that's,
mhm.
a
Yeah,
lot of times in life, in business, like that is the hardest part, is just to start something and get it in momentum. So I
it's
know
very true.
certainly that, yeah, this conversation will make it easier for people to understand that world and to also, pick a place where they can get started. So
Mhm.
super grateful to you, Julie. I'm so glad we connected. I'm going to pop over and make sure that we're connected on socials as well. And
Great.
really look forward to being in touch.
All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been great. Appreciate it.